Mario Puzo is considered one of the greatest American authors ever to put ink to paper, and among Italian American writers, he's one of the most famous. Puzo's most famous work is the Mafia novel The Godfather, which tells the story of mob boss Vito Corleone and his family and the violence surrounding the mob world. The book put him in the spotlight as a writer and sold 21 million copies worldwide. The book was turned into a film trilogy, with the first two movies being considered some of the greatest films of all time. But before Puzo found fame with The Godfather, he was a struggling writer trying to feed his family and make ends meet. As he became desperate to make money, he would reluctantly write The Godfather. And as an Italian American, reinforcing a stereotype of mobsters and criminals wasn't something he wanted to do. Still, he did it because he knew it would sell. This is the profile of Mario Puzo's life and career. Puzo was born in Hell's Kitchen on October 15, 1920, to poor Italian immigrants from the province of Avellino. According to the New York Times, Puzo's father, a railroad trackman, abandoned the family when Mario was 12, leaving his wife to raise their 7 children. At this time, Mario Puzo dropped out of school to seek employment to take care of his family. Puzo found work as a railroad clerk, but aspired to be a writer. Puzo would spend his free time reading books he checked out from the local library. Following his service in Germany during World War II, Puzo returned home and studied at the New School for Social Research and Columbia University. Puzo began working as a civil servant and writing pulp stories for men's magazines. In 1960, Puzo was hired as an assistant editor of a group of men's magazines. And he also wrote action stories, mainly about World War II battles. Puzo also wrote pulp stories in a magazine published by the then owner of Marvel Comics, Stan Lee. In 1955 and 1964, he published his first 2 novels, The Dark Arena and The Fortunate Pilgrim. Despite good reviews from buyers, he only earned $3,500 from The Dark Arena and $3,000 from The Fortunate Pilgrim. Although these novels were praised, they didn't make him a lot of money. So, Puzo set out to write something he knew would sell and make him enough money to take care of his family, consisting of a wife and 5 children. Puzo had no connection with or personal knowledge of organized crime and relied on research into the Mafia underworld for the book. This provided him with key details for the story, such as the crime family's strong ties and criminal activities. Puzo recalls street gangs, including the Mafia, in his neighborhood when he was growing up, but he steered clear of them and held tight to the structure of his family. The resistance to the Mafia culture in the community might also be due in part to his strict mother, who told him that it was best to stay home because, quote, only bad things happen to you outside. According to the New York Post, with the hope of escaping poverty, Puzo retreated to a broom closet-sized room in his basement and began to write The Godfather. The noise from the basement's pool table would distract him as his children hit the balls into the table's pockets, prompting Puzo to tell them to keep the noise down because he was writing a bestseller. His children didn't believe that their father's countless hours in the broom closet were going to produce the bestseller he thought they would, and would laugh and roll their eyes at him when he brought it up because they knew at the time of writing The Godfather, Puzo was a long way from the bestsellers list. Despite being broke, Puzo lived a fancy lifestyle and was racking up the debt. He didn't want to write a mafia story, but when his publisher's editor said that The Fortunate Pilgrim might have done better if there was more of a mafia element in the story, Puzo reluctantly decided to write a mafia-themed story. He would receive a $5,000 advance for the book and spend 3 years working on it, as if almost procrastinating. After Puzo and his wife returned home from Europe, they were so broke that they feared that they might have to sell their house. But that's when Puzo heard how much the paperback rights to The Godfather sold, as he met his editor for lunch at the Algonquin Hotel. At first, Puzo didn't believe it, thinking it was a joke, as that amount for paperback rights at the time was unheard of. In 1969, when public interest in the Mafia and related stories was at an all-time high, the hardcover version of the book would be released. The Godfather would quickly reach the bestsellers list, putting him on the fast track to fame and fortune. People would ask him if he had any personal connections to the Mafia, or if he was involved because of the book's details. The answer, of course, was no. And this question was one that Puzo took great offense to. The Godfather sold 5 million copies in 1970. By January of 1971, 7 million copies were in print. It was also at this time the single most profitable book published by Putnam's. Not everybody felt that The Godfather would be the mega bestseller that Mario believed it could be, including his mother, who never really believed in his writing, until the paperback rights to The Godfather sold for $410,000. When Puzo phoned his mother to tell her the news, she repeatedly misunderstood and thought it sold for $40,000. Once she heard the actual figure, she told her son not to tell anybody. Following the success of The Godfather, Maria Puzo would refer to her son as, quote, a poet. Puzo wrote the screenplay for the film adaptation of The Godfather and other films, such as Superman and Superman 2, and continued to write as a novelist, winning the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay in 1973 and 1975. However, many directors were not thrilled about the idea of turning the novel into a movie, and many turned it down. As the New York Post states, many studios saw it as nothing more than another gangster flick. Paramount offered Puzo $12,500 as an option to make the film, and another $50,000 if it were made. His agent didn't think it was a good deal, but to the struggling writer, it was dollar signs. So Puzo agreed. Not everybody was a fan of the film, including other notable Italian Americans such as Frank Sinatra, who said of the book and film, and of Puzo, who had his lawyers demand to see a manuscript of the novel before it was published, because Sinatra thought the mobbed-up crooner Johnny Fontaine bore a resemblance to him. According to Puzo's memoir, when he and Sinatra met at a party, Sinatra exploded, calling Puzo a pimp and threatening to beat him up. According to Puzo's memoir. He states, as the writer walked away, the singer screamed, choke, go ahead and choke. 1978, Puzo wrote Fools Die, about gambling in Las Vegas, where paperback rights were sold for $2.55 million. He would later return to some of the themes found in The Godfather, with the Sicilian in 1984, adapted into a movie in 1987. Other works include The Last Don and The Fourth K. Puzo's wife, Erica, died in 1978, and her nurse became his partner. Puzo died before completing Omerta, the third in the Godfather trilogy. The New York Times states that in an interview Puzo gave in 1997 regarding the success of The Godfather, Puzo said it became popular because of the, quote, disenchantment with the American justice system and a craving for close family ties. I hate violence, said the father of The Godfather. Although The Godfather brought him fame and fortune, Puzo never considered it his best work. This title, he felt, went to The Fortunate Pilgrim, which he believed was an accurate portrayal of life for Italian American immigrants struggling to make it in a new world called America. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to get all of the exciting content that I'll be posting in the future, including additional episodes of writer profiles and podcast. You can check out my books on Amazon, details at the end of this video.